why don't I just tell him the things I remember?
You can.
Perfect.
Just
So
let me record you.
that's perfect, Aunt Millie. So tell me, when do your Piermont memories begin? What's your earliest memory of Piermont?
Okay, well, I wouldn't remember, but I was born to the First World War,
1918.
1918. And my father took care, it was a two-family house. There was 10 children, with 2 of them were babies. I was one of the babies. And the 2 neighbors had the flu, all the children. My father, the only one that didn't have the flu. He said, but I heard them speak. The doctor came to every house, the people were sick. My father was the only one that could take care of 11 people, luckily. And the doctor told him to feed them food as spicy as they could eat. Now, I was a baby, but I remember whenever I'm sick, I always wish I had hot peppers.
This was during the Spanish flu, the
Yeah.
1918 epidemic.
Yeah. So I don't know why I needed a vaccine now, but I did have the flu. Yeah. Well, anyway, that part. And I told you about the hotel where the people came in winter. The Fort Comfort was the first hotel before it burnt down. The wealthy people would move into the hotel in winter. Their husbands all worked on Wall Street, and then they would go there weekends. And then my older sisters told me the school, there was Mr. Thompson had the Fort Comfort, and they had a merry-go-round. And upstairs, there was a schoolroom, the first and second grade. And that's where my sisters went. But I was lucky, they had built a small school. So I started kindergarten there.
Before the high school was
Yeah.
built.
And Mr. Thompson was very mean. And we were very poor people. So we had no money for a ticket to get on the merry-go-round. So we had to jump on the merry-go-round. And then Mr. Thompson would stop it, he'd get on, he wanted the tickets. And we didn't have no tickets, so we had to jump off. That part was sad. Well, anyway, the Italian people never called doctors. And my mother used to deliver the babies with one of the other Italian ladies.
They were
And they
midwives.
would go into the house the day the baby was going to be born. And they would bake bread and then take care of the small children who were there, deliver the baby, and then the people were on their own because they had to go home and take care of their own children. So anyway, about every 3 or 4 months, the Dr. Lightning would go in the Italian section and find out how many children were born. Now, if you went to school at that time, 4 or 5 Italian children had the same birthday. You know why? He registered them not on their birthday, the day he went. Yeah, well, that was Piermont, yeah. But it was a wonderful town. The people took care of each other, and your neighbors could correct you and squeal on you, and you had to watch your step. When my son got his first ticket for speeding, my husband never knew it. But the neighbor, Miss Lisi, called Mr. Gallucci, and they fixed it. Now, when my father came from the city, he had 2 children, then his grandfather and my sister. So, and the apartment they lived in was Willie Muddy, the shoemaker. And the first thing he did was Lenny's grandfather, he cut a small piece of letter. And he went up to the school and went to the principal and said, this is for Joe Masucci only. He wouldn't let him use it on other children. In those days, the principal was allowed to beat the children. So Lenny's grandfather had his own private strap. Yeah.
Those were different times.
So anyways, you can tell me, so ask questions, the ones you want. Yeah.
So one of the questions that we have is, did you go to St. John's Church? Were you a St. John's Church parishioner?
Well, I have to make a confession because I'm getting close to the other side. I wasn't very religious. So I had to go because the parents made you go to church.
Do you remember the old church, the original wooden church?
So I grew up in a monastery because his parents, both parents died and left 3 small children. So he was going to become a monk, he and his brother, but something happened. They never said what happened, but they never went to church again, my father or his brother, but they did get a good education. My father knew the operas, he knew about art. In fact, he used to sing. So my growing up was kind of strange for children, but that's it. It was during a depression, and my mother took in 22 boarders. She had a boarding house, and men came from Brooklyn on the train to work in the factory. And you'll never guess how much they made. I think it was minimum $3 a week, not 40 hours.
Much more than
It was
40
about
hours.
50, 60 hours. And most of my mother's boarders were sailors that jumped ship. Portugal, Spain, Italy,
What is,
Brazil. And summertime, they go swimming after they came home from work. And where I lived was the farthest part of the river, was 3 miles from Piermont to Irvington. And these young men would swim across the river to Irvington and then come back.
amazing.
And then there was always somebody looking for them because they were here illegally, not like it is now. So sometimes a man would disappear because somebody told them they were being looked, someone was looking for them.
Where was your mom's house? Which,
And the one that's still there now,
it was in Aunt Fanny's
right
house?
next to Hardee's.
Do you remember the number on Piermont Avenue?
No.
Okay, we know the place.
Well, anyway, when my mother's house was sold about 40 years ago, or maybe
Longer.
sooner, whatever, it went to 25,000. And right now they tell me it's over $1 million.
Now, your house, your husband built on the site of the Fort
Yeah.
Comfort Inn.
Yeah. And another thing, at the time, we always lived on the river. Everybody had a beach, but all the people kept making their property bigger and bigger. And my mother's the only one that didn't, and no one ever stopped them. In fact, people think that's the reason we have bad floods in Piermont. The last one was tragic.
Your house was destroyed. Thankfully, you had already moved.
And when my mother came to live there, of course, she came from Italy, there was a rowboat, she says, tied to the street. So you think back how much they filled in.
Right.
It was from here to the church. It was all water. And the people that did that, they spoiled part of Piermont.
Absolutely.
And no
right.
one ever stopped them.
What year did your mom come to Piermont from
Well,
Italy?
my oldest sister, Fanny, is 7 years older than I, and I'm 103.
3?
So I was thinking maybe about 112.
So it'd be 112 years.
My
So
father was 60 years old when I was born. Yeah. And he still had a young son. My father had two sons named Joe. He liked that name, yeah.
My grandfather and my godfather, Joe Mizuki, right? The both of them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And summertime is, all we had was swimming in Piermont, and then wintertime was dancing. So you should see the firemen dance, the young men. It was real ballroom dancing, not jumping up and down. It really was a lot of fun, yeah.
Do you have any memories of during World War II, what Fremont was like?
Oh, World War II, yes. My one brother was in the service, Joe, and my other brother, he volunteered, and he went out in the list, and he come back, and he was even crying, and I was so proud of him. He wasn't accepted. He had some kind of a nervous disorder, and he said when he was crying and telling us, "Why didn't they let me cook?" But you can't just get one soldier and say, "Here, let him cook," you know. So I remember I bought the record, the Boogie Bugle Boy, just for my brother. So my brother, across the street from where we live was a bar. So the soldiers would come there when they had leave. So the next morning when you woke up, there was all a bunch of soldier coats. My brother bring 5 and 6 soldiers home. They'd be sleeping on the couch and whatever bed was empty. And my mother would cook for them the next day. And then we, and my sisters, well, I was more born then, but my baby was small. So we would have to entertain the soldiers. Well, of course, they had to leave like till after lunch. So while my mother's cooking, we're dancing the conga from one apartment to another. And it was a lot of fun. My sister would go to church on 6 or 7 soldiers. No soldiers were Catholic. So she was very, she had the time doing war as hell, yeah. Then my friend tells me, well, a few Italian girls hadn't gotten married, and they would tell their mother that they were going to a movie. Their husbands were all fighting in Europe, and they would like to go to bars instead of go to the movies and dance with the young soldiers, even though they were all young brides. But when you think back, the husbands are dancing with somebody in Europe, right? So it goes both ways, yeah. So that's the way life is, yeah.
Did you work in the silk mill at all with
Yeah.
my grandmother?
Well, the silk mill. And there's a lot of young men in Piermont died. There were 6 houses, 3 on one side and 3 on the other. 5 of the boys died.
During the war?
My cousin and my young friends that I grew up with, wonderful young people. I still cry when they have during Memorial Day, remembering. Now they would all be in their 90s or close to. Yeah. So I was always against war. I wrote to 2 presidents begging them during the Vietnam War, and well, it was still on. I wrote to the other, telling them my idea of war. You make all the ammunition, but don't use it. Let the other countries know you got this, but don't kill people. One person being killed is too much, but nobody listens to me. Yeah.
We're still listening.
I still have to tell that my son is in the 8, and he never buttons his coat, even in winter. And I still tell him, button your coat, Jerry. Yeah. That's mothers never stop being mothers.
Right.
Yeah. And my family all died young. I'm the only one that lived this long. But the only thing that's made it possible was my nieces and nephews. And
Well, we all love you. So just back to this, well, really quickly, because I saw pictures of all the ladies sitting outside the silk mill,
yeah,
and my grandma Leah was there.
yeah.
Did you work with her at that time at the mill?
I
No,
was only a kid. But
that's what I thought.
your father was 25 years older than I was. See, my father kept having children. He had 11 children. Yeah. And I was next to the last. Yeah. And I loved my brothers and sisters so much. And now I love their children and grandchildren.
Well, you have a lot of godchildren and grandchildren in Piermont that all love you.
Yeah. Well, they made it possible for me to come through all the thing, life without my family.
Aunt Mel, how was it working in the silk mill?
She didn't work in the silk.
I worked there, but
Just-
don't forget that I was much younger than the rest of them.
Yes.
Well, you had to go to work because your parents were poor.
And what did you do there?
You were a weaver. That's what they made ribbon. Yeah,
You made ribbon mostly.
yeah. Minimum wage. The most I ever earned was $5 an hour. And I worked 47 years.
Is that how you got interested in doing crochet or knitting?
Oh, I still do. Yeah,
Yeah, some of the stuff you knit is lovely. You
yeah.
can see it all. I see it
Crochet,
in Afghan. Is it crochet or knitting?
crochet.
Yeah.
And Melly, what's your favorite memory of Piermont as a baby? Your little girl.
Excuse me?
What was your favorite
memory?
childhood memory of swimming in Piermont, living in Piermont?
Well, we went swimming, but my father was sit on the dock. Now, I'm from Italian background, and they're very, very strict. So after we came out of the water, my father would tell us we had to go home upstairs and get dressed. And you were not allowed to go out on a date.
They were very strict.
Yeah,
Did you do any fishing yourself? I know everyone is a fisher.
but
Did you ever learn to fish? Like,
no, I don't like fish. And I was born on the river, but I don't like fish.
You don't like to eat it either, right?
what other memories do you have of Piermont after World War II? And my mom and dad met, I guess, was in the 50s or 40s, I guess, late 40s.
Well, they were married before I was born, and even Uncle Joe.
Well, yeah, and even Uncle Joe
Yeah.
were, right.
Well, your father was 25 years older than I was.
Well, my grandfather was 25 years old, but my
Yeah,
dad,
yeah, yeah. Oh, I used to go dancing with Lenny's father. After I was married. And they lived in the same street. And he was a very good dancer.
my dad couldn't go
Yeah.
to the war either.
No,
So he was around during World
yeah,
War II.
yeah. And then I introduced him to Lenny's mother. And that was the end of my dancing.
They
with Lenny, yeah.
they went to Tolman to have dances during the war, right? Tolman Park?
We had the sidewalk dancing. Yeah, they were fun. Yeah. They'd close the street. Now there's about maybe 5 cars a day. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of dancing going on back then.
Yeah.
What about when the pier was built, Aunt Melly? When the pier was built, what happened with you and
I
Joe?
wasn't born then.
It was
Oh, no,
years
no.
earlier.
That was there before I was born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you and Joe, Maraglia?
I mean,
Jake Maraglia?
Well, he was younger than I was. Yeah,
yeah, Jake is younger.
yeah.
I want to say Jake's 96 now or 97 now, something like that.
The 103, that's a different age. Yeah.
So what else can you say that you remember? What about the memories you said that were told to you by people from before you were born? that you were mentioning to me earlier,
Well, I told you about the hotel,
right?
yeah. And the first public building had 2 cells of jail. But I don't think anybody ever went to jail.
You mean the Piermont Village Hall had 2 cells, yes.
Well, is there any questions?
Bill, is there anything else that you wanted to ask her?
Yeah, well, actually, I just texted you. It's better for you to ask because you're closer. If you look at your phone, I texted you three or four questions. Can you see them?
So where they go, Dan, you kind of covered that.
Well, I guess we did other jobs, but stores, maybe a little more dancing and how Piermont's changed.
Yeah, so it's a stores in Piermont.
Well, there was a few grocery stores. One has closed. And the man that owned it